Hello, everyone. I wanted to do a quick and dirty tutorial on how to set up replay buffer and record essentially your clips in both horizontal and vertical format, whether you're streaming or not. This is essentially how I do it on stream to make sure that I get the highest quality clip locally so that I can then use it for, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all that good stuff, right? YouTube. So let's get started. As you can see, I actually have my replay buffer activated right now, hence why it's showing as stop replay buffer. And I'm also recording this video, hence, the stop recording button over there. So first things first, we're going to go to File, Settings, and we are going to go to Output. So first things first, depending on your output mode, whether it's simple or advanced, the replay buffer section or tab will appear differently. On advanced, it shows up as a tab here. Whereas in simple mode, I believe it's a section at the bottom of this page under recording, in fact. So we'll be under the recording tab and at the very bottom. But since I'm advanced already now and I can't change that, we're going to click on the replay buffer tab. And once I'm here, you have a couple of options. Number one, how long do you want the clip to be? In my case, I'm perfectly fine with 30 seconds, but you can raise this to longer, much longer if you'd like. But just make sure that if you are raising that, you want to also raise your maximum memory. Now, maximum memory will vary depending on your video settings. If your video settings are set so that you get the highest quality image, you may need to bump this. You need to do some trial and error there to make sure you have enough bandwidth. And just for your reference, like whenever you're putting maximum memory, that means that's going to be the dedicated amount of memory that's used from your RAM. So what's cool about OBS is that it actually keeps your replay in a state that's saved in your RAM and only writes on your drive when you actually click the hotkey to save the replay, which is really neat over some other um, options out there that continuously write over your disk drive. So now we go into the recording tab. Most of this will be grayed out because I'm currently recording, but you can see my recording settings here. Recording format, you have a different options. Typically, you want to keep this to MKV. There is MP4, but the thing with MP4 is that if, let's say, your OBS crashes or something, you will lose that MP4 clip. It's gone. Whereas MKV, it's still usually salvageable and usually saves the portion that was recorded. It actually is an option. Let me hop in there right away under advanced, where you have this option called automatically remux to MP4. So what that does is that at the end of the recording, it will take that MKV and automatically convert it for you into an MP4 format, which is what I would recommend. But let's go back to output under recording. Then you have your video encoder. If you do have access to the AV1 encoder, that currently is the best encoder you could use. So I would definitely recommend that. Best quality picture. And then let's just scroll down to the section that's really important, which is the encoder settings. Now, as a streamer, or if you're watching this as a streamer primarily, you will know that typically you will set this to CBR, constant bitrate. But for recording purposes, it's actually recommended to use CQP. I forget what CQP stands for now. But regardless, I took these settings from NVIDIA's recommended page when it comes to recordings. You have CQ level. The lower the level, the higher the quality and the bigger the file size. It was recommended on the NVIDIA site 15. I have seen online anywhere between 15 and 20 is really good. But obviously, if file size is of importance to you, you might want to raise this number, which will result in lower quality, but also lower file size. So it's really a balancing act. I have no issues with hard drive space or whatnot or SSD space. So I have it set to 15 and I don't mind that. But like I said, if you do want to change your quality settings, you could. And then the rest of the settings are more or less actually mirrored what I have for my Twitch streaming settings, I believe, anyways. So just, figure out the best preset for you. Usually P5 is good, P6, P7 might be overkill. And then high quality 2 passes. You could definitely mess around with this, but like I said, I took this mostly from the NVIDIA recommendations. By the way, under general settings, if you wanted replay buffer to just start automatically when you're streaming, you can do so. There is an option there called automatically start replay buffer when streaming, and that's what I have set enabled so that when I am streaming, it will automatically turn on. I don't have to think about it. Now, next step, very important, under hotkeys, you want to go to filter, type in save. And as you can see, I actually have number 8 on my keypad set as the save replay for the replay buffer. You also see that also set here for save replay when it comes to vertical backtrack, and that is pretty much replay buffer, but on the vertical format. As a result of that, you will see that I have a yellow exclamation point here that this hotkey is shared by one or more actions. Click to show the conflicts, but that's perfectly normal. It's just a warning sign letting you know that you have the same hotkey for two actions. And that's perfectly normal. Once again, if you do want to have one button essentially record vertical and horizontal clips at the same time. Now, all this talk about vertical, let's have a look what it actually is. First things first, you want to download the ATEM vertical plugin. That's the cool thing about OBS is that there's all kinds of plugins you can download and install to improve your experience in one way or another. Um, awesome plugins. Definitely recommend checking them out. The ATEM vertical plugin is the one you will need in order to be able to record vertically. You can also stream vertically as well. Just FYI, it's not exclusive to just recording, but we're focusing on the recording portion for this stream. So once you have it installed, first things first, if you have OBS open while you install it, make sure you restart OBS. Um, Secondly, once you're here, you can just navigate to docs and you'll see some new docs here. You have vertical scenes, vertical sources, vertical scene transitions, and just simply vertical. That all comes with the ATEM vertical plugin. And vertical scenes would be your scenes like you would set up in OBS, vertical sources, same thing. And then vertical scene transition would be similar to your regular OBS transition. If you want to have, different layouts, this is where you would set that up. And what's cool about the ATEM vertical plugin is if you wanted to have different layouts, you can have it linked to your specific OBS scenes that you have currently, so that if you change a scene in OBS, it will actually change it in the vertical layout accordingly as well. So you can set it up that way if you'd like to. For me, when I click on vertical, you'll see I actually have my setup here. So this is my layout. I just prefer having my webcam at the top with the overlay along with my gameplay at the bottom. Currently, there is no gameplay running, hence there is just a black empty screen at the moment. I have this set just as my standard vertical scene, but as I mentioned, you can have variety. You can have different scenes based on where you are in OBS. So, for example, if you have a just chatting screen and you want your vertical layout to look differently, you can definitely set it up as such. One thing you might notice here at the bottom is that I do have backtrack, which is essentially replay buffer for the vertical section set up already, enabled. This is going to happen in your settings. So the settings bar cog is right here. And essentially you want to try to mirror what you have in your horizontal. You don't necessarily have to, but it kind of makes sense. If you have 30 seconds on your horizontal, you probably want to have 30 seconds on your vertical, but you can make them different if you'd like. For me, I have it set to 30 seconds, and I also have backtrack set to always on. You can set it up similarly to the OBS setting where it only runs when streaming and recording. I just keep this to always on since it is an option. But once again, personal preference. The recording path for me is the same as my OBS replay buffer one, but you can set that up how you wish. And the backtrack hotkey is once again number 8, which is shared with the horizontal save replay for me. There is a streaming tab here, but since once again we are not focusing on the streaming section, I'm going to ignore this, similar like how I did with the general OBS settings before. We're going to focus on the recording setting instead. So we'll click on the recording settings, and I have my recording path, which once again is set to the same as my horizontal replay buffer. Then under advanced, I just essentially mirrored the same settings that I have. So recording format, video encoder, rate control, CQP 15, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same exact settings that I had for my OBS replay buffer. Now, as you can see, I have my vertical layout happening right now, and I have the backtrack enabled. And at the same time, in the background, I actually have my replay buffer running in OBS as well. So now if I press 8 on my keypad, you'll see the Remux recordings come up. So that Remux recordings is based on my setting where I have it set where MKV files will be automatically converted to MP4 files. So next step is we're going to go into our videos folder. So we are now in my videos folder. Simply ignore the first MKV file. It's got nothing to do with this particular video. But for the next 4 here, this actually represents the recordings that we just made with the horizontal and vertical layouts. We have 2 MKV files and 2 MP4 files, hence why we have 4 files. But we can go ahead and delete the MKV since we have the MP4 here. And for me personally, I have the one that starts with a date as my vertical layout and the one that starts horizontally as my OBS one. Now, if I click on the replay one, et cetera, we have our clip, exact settings that I had. And then if we click on the one that starts with a date, that should be our vertical, the 15, et cetera, et cetera. And there you have it. That's how you're able to set up your local recordings in both horizontal and vertical format to make sure you get the best quality when you put it out there on the internet.